Welcome to this month's Artistic Digitizer tutorial. This month we're going to be looking at creating our very own in the hoop freestanding lace designs for Christmas. So firstly, we've gone ahead and we've opened our software. The next thing we need to do is we need to select our machine and our hoop. So for this project I'm using my Memorycraft 15,000 and I'm going to choose our 140 by 140 hoop. The next thing is our fabric. Because we're stitching out on the freestanding lace out on the washaway stabilizer, the washaway stabilizer, if you actually have a feel of it, looks like a fabric concept. So it's very similar consistency to a cotton fabric. So we are going to leave our embroidery category on normal, and our fabric selection will be fabric non-normal. So if you are looking for a bit more information in regards to the fabric selections, you can actually have a look in your user guide on page 301. Now, if you like, you can either print yours out or you can come up here to your help, and where you have your printable help, you can actually go through your user guide. So there that is. Okay, so once we select our fabric, we can now come back to our open page and we're going to select Create New. Okay, so it has now opened up into our edit screen here. There we go, just center my hoop up a bit. As you can see here, I've got my hoop turned off, but I actually have my grid up as my background. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create our foundation shape. So in these freestanding lace ornaments that we're going to create some stars. So the easiest way to do that is you could go through and manually create out a star, but it's a lot easier to come down to our shapes down here and select our star shape. Okay. So when you select that, it then comes up here and it gives you some information. It allows you to change the number of rays, so how many points you've got in your star, and the size of the star. The start angle actually refers to our, orientation of the shape. Okay, so to create our star, we're just going to hold our mouse down and we're going to drag into place. So as you can see here, you can move it around. Once you've created the shape that you want, you just let go of the left click of your mouse and you'll have your star shape. So as you can see here, we've got 6 rays. We could change that down to 4, change that out to 8, go back to 6. Our size, so we could take that down to 10, we could take that out to 90, but we'll go back to 80. Okay. Let's try that again. Let's bring him over here. Change him. Then like a bit more point. Let's go down to 70. Change that back to 6. Okay. So you can see here in our start angle, he's a little bit, this point here is a little bit off to the right, so we want to center it up a bit. So you just click on here and you can actually move him around until you've got him in the upright position. And then that will give us something that we can, like a foundation to put our loop on, that we can then hang him from our tree. Okay, so let's look. We've got our raise selected, we've got our point percentage selected, we've got our angle selected. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come down here and we're going to deselect our outline, which is our top one, so that we've only got our fill stitches selected. We're then going to come over to our properties and we're going to change our fill from a step to a net. And then finally, I'm going to change the colour. I'm going to choose royal purple. Now, the reason I have changed the colour is purely so I can actually see it on my background. And then the other reason is, so see it on the background here, but also see it on the background when you send it through to your machine. There's one thing I bugs me when you go into your embroidery machine and you go to stitch out something that's created a lace and it's saved in white, so you can't actually see what you're stitching. So we've changed it to purple so we can actually see what we're working with. Okay. The next thing we're going to do, so you can see here we've got our grid. So it's going to form our first layer of our foundation of our lace. So the concept with our freestanding lace is that when we wash it out, you still want your stitches to stay in place. So you have to create a foundation. So when we come through and we create our decorative stitches to go over the top, we still need a foundation that they're going to be able to stay together on once we wash out that stabilizer. And now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create our little loop to hang our ornament in our tree. And the reason we're going to create it now is so that it is then squished between our layers in our foundation. So it's all stitched in and you won't have any issues where you go to wash it out and your design falls apart. So to create our loop, we're going to come back over to our shapes and we're going to select our clips. We're going to create a circle at the top, like so. We will then change our outline colour to purple and we're going to deselect our fill. So we've just got our stitch, just like that. I'm also going to come up here and change from auto to manual. So now in my sequence bar, I can actually see the individual pieces that we're working with. Okay. We're going to change our sizing. So we've got our proportional deselected so that when we change our width and our height, we can set it so we've got a consistent circle. So we're going to change our width to 17 mil and we're going to change our height to 17 mil, like so. Let's zoom out a bit. You can now see we've got our circle there. The next thing we need to do is we're going to create another layer from this star for our foundation. So we're going to select our star in our sequence by itself. So we've only got it selected because it's got the purple little block around it. We're going to go copy and paste. And as you can see up here, it's distorted our first layer. So we're going to go down here, and where it says remove overlaps, we're going to say never. So now that will stitch out 2 layers. The other thing we're going to do to it is we're actually going to change our stitch angle to 45 degrees. So now if you have a look at our star, you can see that we've got like a crisscross pattern. So this will be our foundation of our star. When we wash it out, that's what will be left for our stitches to hold together. Okay. The next thing we need to do is, if we wash this out now by itself, all these stitches will fall apart because there is no border stitch around here tucking everything and holding everything in together. So if you have a look at all your freestanding designs that you have, you'll see that they have a nice big thick satin stitch around the outside, and that just helps wrap around these edges and hold everything together. So we're going to start up here at our circle. We're going to select Digitize Shape. We're going to come in here and we're going to use our right and left clicks on our mouse to trace around this shape. Like so, until we get back to our beginning. We're going to select the shape. We're going to remove our fill, so we've just got our outline stitch. We're going to change our outline stitch from a running stitch to a satin, and we're going to adjust our stitch width to 3.5. Now the 3.5 is a personal preference. I find that if I get anything less than about a 3, I don't get a nice result with my freestanding lace. So you'll find that after you actually have a couple of goes at this, you might find that you like a 4 or a 5 mil. So that is a personal preference. And you've got your loop there. The other thing we need to do with this is we need to change our foundation for it. So at the moment, if we just left it, it would just wrap around that triple run stitch that we've got up here. But we want to add a couple of extra foundation layers in there just to make sure that everything's going to hold together when we wash it out. And to do that, we come over to our properties and we select our underlay. And from our underlay options, we're going to select our netting. So as you can see here, your netting actually provides like a crisscross type formation underneath in our foundation area. So when we stitch this out, we not only have our triple run foundation stitch, we then also have our netting underlay and then our satin stitch underneath. So by building those layers of stitches through here, you're creating fabric in the form of stitches. To finish that, we're going to change it to purple, like so. So we now should have a nice little loop up the top here. The next thing I'm going to do So I'm just going to adjust that sizing back to 17. There we go. Because if your loop's too big and you've got too much gap in here, you'll find that it will distort a little bit. But you don't want it too small that you can't put a nice piece of ribbon through it. Okay, so the next step is we're going to go and create our satin stitch around our star. So we're going to select our digitize, come up here, and we're going to start on this side piece here. We're going to come up to our point and we're going to just follow our outside, bring that down a bit more, of our star. Until we get back to where we started. Okay. So don't stress over that little stitch over there. So when we press select, like so, we are then going to remove our fill stitch. So you can see there that then removed those issues because we didn't have our overlays selected. So when you bring in and create a design and it's got a fill over the top of fill, the software automatically deletes that foundation layer. So if you want to build your designs up to give you dimension, you need to check that you have your remove overlays changed to never. Like that. Okay. So we have our outline. The next thing we need to do is we need to change it to a satin. We're going to change it then to our 3.5 in our width. We're going to change our underlay to our net, and we're going to change our colour, like so. So we now have our foundation of our Christmas ornament. You could leave it like that if you wanted to and just stitch out some stars. You could then put some hand embroidered beads on them if you want to. But we are going to add some decorative stitches to it. So depending on your what decorative stitches you're doing, you have a couple of options. So you can use your clip art. You could create your own design in the middle. We're going to put in the year in the middle. But to do that, so to have any sort of form of decorative stitches in your ornament, we had to create that foundation. So you can now see in our foundation piece here, when we go to stitch our stitches out, they actually have something in the form of a fabric-like feature now to stitch to and to hold into place. So now we're going to create our lettering. We're going to come over to our lettering icon on the left-hand side and click on it. We're going to check that we've got the font that we wish to use, which is XPG 014 selected, and we're going to type 2020. We're not going to worry about any of the other elements. We're going to select. We're going to bring our lettering into the center. We also need to come over to our properties and make sure that we have no overlaps selected. So we're going to remove overlaps and we're going to change it to never. We're going to select our underlay, which is going to create a single underlay underneath our satin stitch letters. So that will help reinforce our letters onto the stitching that we've created at the back there. We also need to change our colour, and we want to make sure that we have the proportional deselected. We're then going to change our width to 50, and we're going to change our height to 30. And finally, if we come in here, you can see that there's a little jump stitch between the letters. So if we leave it the way it is now, when we go to wash it out, you'll have those little jump stitches. If you cut them, because it's currently in the sequence menu, you can see that it's telling us that it's an all-in-one design piece. There won't be any tie-offs between those jump stitches. So what we're going to do is we're going to right-click on our letters or our numbers, and we're going to break it apart. You'll now see that it's changed the letters so that each letter is individual and we don't have any jump stitches in between. We then have our sample. We can then go ahead and save it. So we're going to go save as, and I'm just going to save mine to my desktop, and I'm going to save it as my 2020 star. And you can see here I've saved it as a draw file. So what that means is that if I have any issues with it after I've stitched it out, I can then always come back and make changes to the draw file. Now we're ready to send it to our machine. So we're going to pop in our USB. We're going to go, yes, go away. We're going to go up here to USB storage. We then open it. Yes, it's a new USB. So it's now formatted the USB for me. EMBF folder. I'm going to, so you've got here your three options. I'm going to save it as a JEF Plus because the JPX, I don't actually have any additional data in regards to a background a background image that we need to bring in. So I'm just going to save it as a JEF Plus format. So that means that I can then go and use it not only on my 15,000, but I can actually use it on my other models. So like my 11,000 or something like that. And we're going to export. And we are now ready to go and stitch out our design. So that's how we've created our freestanding ornament with the year. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Happy stitching, Katrina.